Hi Facebook friends, coming from out on the road this afternoon, and it's a sort of wet and drizzly but sunshiny afternoon, but still here and still wanting to talk to you about what's going on in the real estate industry at the moment. So let's have a look. I've got some topics to talk to you about. Let's talk about marketing funds and the trust account. I know I've talked about this before, but I really want to talk about it again. So let's have a really good look. I think I even need to take my glasses off for this one because I get a bit excited and agitated when we start talking about where should marketing money go. And guys, it has to go into your trust account. If you take it at the beginning of a transaction, then you need to be putting that into your trust account because it is not your funds. So put it in the trust account and then disperse it as you pay for different marketing activities. If you don't take the marketing funds until the end of the transaction, then of course it can go straight into your general account. It's an invoice to your client, you've already paid the bill, and it goes straight into your general account. So more than okay then to put it into your general account. But if you're taking it before the bill's being paid, before you've been invoiced, before you've actually done the transaction, then it needs to go into your trust account. If you don't have a trust account, then you need to work out another way of either not taking those monies prior to the invoice being paid or taking the money at the end of the deal, which is often what we do. I also want to talk to you about today is the supervision guidelines. Now, I think lots of people forget about these. I've had quite a few questions this week about how do we make sure that you're compliant with the supervision guidelines. Now, there are 6 specific areas to the supervision guidelines or requirements under the supervision guidelines. Now, the first one obviously is quite an interesting one, and it's about money, surprisingly enough, and it's trust money. So we're back on trust money again. Make sure that you have a process for banking, and that's your first one, and you have to have a written process for that. I'll keep coming back to that written process issue. The second requirement is that you actually have to do your month-end reconciliation. Again, we're talking about trust money. So yes, you do need to do that. And yeah, thanks, John. I have got my glasses off and on today, but not to worry. In terms of our third requirement, this is about supervision. Yes, of course it's about supervision, but it's actually supervising that you're doing substantiation of your sales files. Now, it only relates to sales files, and it's only looking at how you keep records of that. And there are specific guidelines about how to do this. And of course, we've got newer guidelines around underquoting. And guys, you've heard me talk again and again and again about underquoting. So yeah, it is important. It's not just important from an underquoting perspective, it's important from a supervision guideline perspective. The fourth requirement under the supervision guidelines is multiple. It is about disclosures that you need to disclose if you have a beneficial interest in property. So this is where if your name is on title, then you need to be putting agent's interest disclosed. If you are purchasing property through the business where you work or that you own, then again you need to disclose that to your vendor. And thirdly, you need to have a written procedure or a checklist for actually ensuring that the advertising that you put out has no misleading and deceptive information in it. So that's always a good way to go, and making sure that you have actually got a checklist that covers that. The fifth requirement is about complaints. You need to have 2 complaints registers. Now, this doesn't matter whether it's a complaint register on a normal old A4 folder on your shelf, or whether it's a little yellow folder in your screen on your computer. So either way, you need to have 2 separate complaints folders, one for complaints of a general nature and one for complaints of a financial nature. So obviously that again relates to the trust account. So here we have 3 out of 5 so far of our supervision guidelines relating to money. Go figure, it's probably important, guys. The 6th requirement is actually the most important. And what it says is that you must have evidence within your agency that you're actually implementing requirements 1 to 5. So not just that you have a policy around it, not just that you have a nice pretty checklist in the front of your file about it, but that you are actually implementing all of those things within your agency. Now remember guys, when we get the reforms next year, Fair Trading have informed us on numerous occasions that they are upgrading or expanding and the supervision guidelines, which will make it even more important for licensees in charge to actually meet those requirements and ensure that the people working under their supervision meet those requirements. So let's get it right now, and then when it's expanded, it will be an easy thing to do. So remember that we do have the supervision guidelines. They're really important, and if you need more information about it, we can always send you out a written document that we have about the supervision guidelines. So it's an easy one, but it's a really, really important one. The third thing I want to talk about today is I want to talk about cooling off periods on agency agreements. So cooling off periods on agency agreements is a question that we often get asked. When it came into the legislation, yes, everybody was all over it and everyone was talking about it, but everyone seems to have forgotten that it's a requirement. So on an agent, it's got nothing to do with the cooling off period requirement or benefit for a purchaser when they are purchasing a property. This is about the cooling off period for a vendor when they are signing your agency agreement, giving you authority to take on the really important role of selling their property. So when you sign up an agency agreement, your vendor has 1 business day, including Saturdays, because it's a work day for our industry, and to actually withdraw. So up until 5 p.m. on the following business day, including a Saturday, to actually withdraw. So, and they have to withdraw in writing. And so it's more than just ringing you up and saying, no, I don't want to do it anymore. So they actually do have to withdraw in writing. So when we make sure that happens, but remember, don't go and book advertising. Don't go and spend any money until the cooling off period is over. So otherwise you're going to be up for it. If they withdraw, that's your problem and your expense. So just make sure that you have actually gone past that cooling off period time and then get on with the job of selling that person's property. Now, can you waive it? Yes, of course you can. Now, the way to waive it is that you must have given the vendor a copy of the Consumer Education Guide about agency agreements at least the day before you sign them up on the agency agreement, but no more than a month before. So that's one requirement. The second one is that they have to note that on the agency agreement that they have received that Consumer Education Guide at least the day before and no more than a month before. And then they also need to put that in writing separately. Now you can have something ready for them to sign, but it needs to be separately in writing also. So there's 3 steps to actually waiving that cooling off period. So if you're going to go down the path of waiving that cooling off period, there may be a whole range of reasons why you really, really want that particular listing. So if you want to ensure that you're going to get that and that you are sure that the vendor is happy and understands what's going on, because that's what it's about. It's about consumer protection and making sure that they have a really good understanding of what it is that they're signing and what they're getting into in terms of signing an agency agreement with you. So make sure you've met all of those 3 criteria if you're going to make that happen. So there's 3 topics for you guys in terms of staying compliant and staying ahead of the game. So where are we over the next few weeks and the last few weeks leading up to Christmas? Well, we're in Moree, we're in Gosford, we're in Newcastle, we're up in the Blue Mountains, we're in Bathurst twice in the next week with 2 separate agencies, one for licensing courses, one for CPD. We've got Strata licensing course happening at the moment, insurance and trust accounting for Strata agents this week. Later in the week, we've had mortgage broking, and so we've got some mortgage broking follow-up coming in the next week or so. So there's lots of other training, lots of CPD going on. There's Parramatta, there's Bankstown, and there's Liverpool. So guys, plenty of training around, plenty of opportunities for you to make sure you have the information